Good morning. Happy Thursday. Let's have a day. It is time for Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. And my God, do we have breaking news. All over the place we have breaking news. That's the advantage of being here first thing in the morning, is that we get so much to you, including the latest, greatest from the Clippers, Steve Ballmer, new reporting from Pablo Torre. We're going to break that down over the course of the show. In fact, the great Tom Haberstroh is going to join us in about 30 minutes. So we will get you the latest reporting on the Clippers and whether or not they've been circumventing the salary cap, plus breaking news on the 49ers quarterback situation. So much to get into. But Caroline, let's start the day like we start every day. 3 points. What's on your mind?
Yeah, we are in the best time of the sports calendar, but also some good news for Chiefs fans as well. Andy Reid said that Xavier Worthy's shoulder injury will not require surgery or time on IR. So this goes back to the Chiefs Week 1 matchup against the Chargers when Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce collided on the field, and you saw Xavier Worthy kind of rolling around on the field, grasping his shoulder. Now, Travis Kelce did apologize. He explained what went wrong. He said, I need to be better. I'm a 13-year veteran. I can't be colliding with my own teammates on the field. So Travis Kelce, did what he needed to do. Clearly nothing was intentional there. But I do, however, think that the Chiefs should still consider acquiring Tyreek Hill. At least we know that Xavier Worthy will be out for less than 4 weeks. Of course, a trip to IR would be at least 4 games. But I don't think that it would be a bad idea to at least pick up the phone and call the Miami Dolphins and see what the trade package would be for Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs will be without Rashee Rice for the first 6 weeks of the season as he is serving a suspension from the league. Xavier Worthy will be out, not on IR, but for at least some period of time. And if the Chiefs believe that they're in a Super Bowl window, which if you're the Chiefs, why would you not believe that you're in a Super Bowl window? Of course you're in a Super Bowl window. How much more explosive and how much better can this offense be than it already is with the addition of Tyreek Hill and Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy? Fitzy, I'm saying if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm at least picking up the phone and seeing what the price would be.
No, you're 1,000% right. That's one Super Bowl rematch we have this weekend, but we've got another one. And it brings me to my first point. 2 ships sailing in the night, headed in very different directions. Since the last time we saw the Rams-Titans play in a Super Bowl, things have gone wildly different for each of these franchises. But we do get a Super Bowl rematch this weekend between these two teams. Again, distant Super Bowl, but these are two teams right now that have a lot on the line. The Rams because of their playoff seeding, and the Titans because that man right there. Callahan has put himself squarely on the hot seat, and every single week that we watch Cam Ward, we're going to ask ourselves, is Cam Ward going to be able to grow into the number 1 overall pick that can save a franchise? The question is, can the franchise help him along the way? We saw it in week 1. Callahan's mismanagement as a head coach raised a lot of questions about whether or not the systems are even in place to make the most of the young quarterback they have. How much will we see now? Because frankly, Callahan, when you ask yourself, what makes my coach great? The question I think you have to ask is, what's his calling card? What's the thing that we can hang on his shoulders and say, he is great at this? For Callahan, it was supposed to be great at offense and quarterback development, but shouldn't we at least account for the fact that he worked with a guy named Joe Burrow? I think so. He doesn't have Joe Burrow now. He has Cam Ward, and he has to develop Cam Ward from scratch. That seat is already hot because Nashville is already impatient with the way the Titans lost week 1. Certainly, they're an underdog again this week. They were a big underdog last week. You can take hope in the fact that they played more competitively than we expected against the Broncos, or you can look at it and say, golly, coaches found a way to choke them out of that football game. Now they're taking on Sean McVay, one of the better coaches in the NFL, one of the better offensive minds in the NFL. Let's see if the Titans defense can continue to make things problematic for the teams, the offenses that they face. But more importantly, can Brian Callahan get out of his own way? Do we really trust Callahan in a chess match against Sean McVay? For me right now, the answer is no. And the only way that answer changes is if Callahan proves that he can do something we haven't seen him do. Outcoach the other sideline. The Titans may end up being an abject disaster this year, but this Rams-Titans game will have consequence for the Rams because of what they're trying to accomplish, and for the Titans because every single week that they lose, we get a week closer to a possible rebuild. And that brings us to our top point because it is Thursday night. I don't know if you know this or not. I don't know if the world's paying attention, but Thursdays hit different. Thursdays hit different now, Caroline Fenton, because Thursdays give us Thursday night football. And the NFL is not stupid. The NFL has given us a second week Thursday night football matchup for the ages. Jordan Love versus Jayden Daniels. Now, last time I checked, they don't actually face each other, but they do face each other in some ways. It will be an epic Thursday night football matchup. Yeah. No, they actually, I would love that. if the game started, instead of a coin toss, if the game started with an actual mano-a-mano, we can do whatever. I don't care. Arm wrestling, paper, rock, scissors, slap fight.
We're just going to sucker punch each other in the face.
Then Daniels we could actually...
versus Jordan Love. I'm here for it. Honestly, sign me up for that. We need some new pizzazz in this game anyway. It's been the same for too long.
I love the idea of which quarterback would win in a slap fight because I don't think either one would actually get in a fist fight. Their hands matter too much. So it's just a slappy fight. Okay, so let's talk quarterbacks right now because tonight we get this matchup of two elite teams, two elite quarterbacks, two teams with a lot of expectations. So right now, this second, today, who's the better quarterback?
I have to go with Jayden Daniels. And look, we have more of a sample size of Jordan Love, and I do want to see year 2 of Jayden Daniels. If you can do it in your rookie year, and obviously that was a very magical season from Jayden Daniels and the Commanders last year, give it to me again before I can truly trust you as a quarterback, before I can anoint you the next great one, which is what I think a lot of people want to do with Jayden Daniels. I have to see it twice. But just based off of 1 year with Jayden Daniels, I have to say it's him. Because if you tell me, okay, Caroline, you need to pick a quarterback between these two, you have to win this game. Who do you trust more? Who do you feel like can will you to victory? I have to go with Jayden Daniels. I really liked what I saw from from Jordan Love and their week 1 matchup against the Detroit Lions. But again, we've seen Jayden Daniels elevate a franchise that has been miserable for so many years, really a majority of my lifetime. Year 1, he gets them to the NFC Championship game. I trust Jayden Daniels more. I trust his explosive ability more. I trust his legs more. I'm going Jayden Daniels.
You're not wrong, but you know how much I love proof of concept. I just this is the hill I always die on. And so while we've seen this incredible moment of brilliance from Jayden Daniels, we've seen now sustained quality play from Jordan Love. And, you know, cautioning everybody, I think I'm the last person to jump on the Jordan Love bandwagon, but I'm now fully on it. Like the wagon, I was trying to run next to the wagon for a while before I committed on whether or not I was going to dive onto it, but I dove onto it now, especially after we saw what we saw week 1, a surgical execution by Jordan Love, and then look back on top of what we saw. Okay, so Jordan Love, the first 8 games of his career, I think were questionable and some accuracy issues. And I questioned after the last 8 games of that season whether or not we were overreacting. And last year, there were some ups and downs, but I understand that, and I feel like where we stand today, right now, we have so much proof of concept that Jordan Love can do so many things. Jayden Daniels, if I needed one play, I trust Jayden Daniels more. If I need one game, I have so much proof of concept. I want to believe in Jayden Daniels, but as we talk about all the time, like I have trust issues. So I need to see more. What about which quarterback do you think this year, looking at these teams as a whole, which quarterback do you think has the better chance to make the Super Bowl this season?
Oh, this is so hard because I think it's incredibly disingenuous for me to not say the Packers because I've been saying since Sunday that the Packers had the most dominant win of the weekend, looked like the most complete team of the weekend. And then you add Micah Parsons into a mix with a team that was in the playoffs last year and just ran into an absolute wagon that was the Philadelphia Eagles. Like it is so easy today for me to say that the Packers look like a Super Bowl contender because they do. It is so easy for me to clear out a path for the Packers to get to the Super Bowl because it feels like they have a pretty clear one. I'm going to go the Commanders, though, and maybe this so isn't fair, but they were a game away from it last year. I mean, the Packers got to the wild card round, got bounced. Yes, it was by the eventual Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. I understand that. But the Commanders were 1 game away from the Super Bowl. They also just happened to run into the absolute wagon that was the Philadelphia Eagles. So I have 1 year of a sample size, rather. But the Commanders got to the NFC Championship game and the Green Bay Packers didn't. So for that, I will say the Commanders and Jayden Daniels have a better shot of getting to the Super Bowl because we have a proof of concept coming from the king of proof of concept.
Nah, you backed me into a corner on my own argument. That is quality debating by you. That is well done by you. You're not wrong in everything you just said. I love how we both can qualify our yeah buts. I'm like, you're not wrong, but here's the thing for me.
Like there's no wrong answer.
The Commanders was the wrong answer because it's Jordan Love and right now the Packers. And so this is what I did yesterday because I'm an idiot. I heard Peter Schrager a couple of days ago say that he thought the most impressive unit on either side of the ball for the entire weekend in the NFL was the Green Bay Packers defense. And so I went back and, like the glutton for punishment I rewatched the Packers-Lions game. And I think I spent so much time initially when I watched it thinking, oh, the Lions are broken. The Lions are broken. The Lions are broken. What if the Packers are just that damn good on defense? What if the Packers just absolutely found ways to get after the quarterback from everywhere, and that Packers defense looked wildly good against an offense that's going to turn out to be just fine? Like, we've taken the Lions-Packers result as proof of concept that the Lions are not going to be the team they were. I wonder if what we actually saw, and we only have 1 week, so we don't know yet, but I wonder if what we actually saw is that this Packers defense, even with Micah, who you see on the screen there, who played a limited snap count and was a shell of himself with a back injury and still isn't in football shape, that defense still looked wildly good. They swarmed to the football. Their speed all over the place was absolutely incredible. It just felt like they were never a step behind. There were no wasted steps. They were never in the wrong position. It felt like they knew what was coming ahead. So I keep looking at that defense and saying, oh my God. So now I've got a defense that I think is truly, oh my God. I've got a running back in Josh Jacobs that I trust through and through and through. And I've got a quarterback that I just said is surgical. When I put those things together, it gets me to the Packers as a clear Super Bowl favorite. Like, I don't think right now, 1 week. Look, we got 16 more games to go before we're going to make any decisions over 17 weeks. After 1 week, I can't find a fatal flaw to what I've rewatched it. I cannot find a single fatal flaw to what the Packers did. I'm not saying that the Commanders aren't very good, and you're right. Last year, the Commanders made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. So why not Washington? My answer to that is it just feels like in 1 week, the Packers were special. It feels like the Packers hit different to me.
The Packers were special. And I feel like we've been doing this all off season. We're trying to poke holes in what the Commanders were last season, or maybe more so, we're trying to poke holes in the Commanders being able to recreate what they did last season. We're not doing that with Denver, at least before week 1 when Denver struggled with the Tennessee Titans and got bailed out by a couple of idiotic tactical mistakes from Brian Callahan. But we haven't been doing that with the Broncos. And I understand the Broncos have Pat Surtain and that defense. And I understand that the Broncos have Sean Payton coaching that team. But we just want the Commanders to take a step back so badly as a collective football society, yet we're not applying that same logic to some of these other second-year quarterbacks. But I think you make a great point about the Packers and the defense. That week 1, I think, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, it can oftentimes be a fallacy because we saw, a pretty rough Detroit Lions offense. It may be easy for us to say, well, the Lions are broken. Without Ben Johnson, they can't recreate what they've done. Maybe the Packers defense is just that good. Same thing, I think, with the Colts and Dolphins game. We're so quick to saying the Dolphins are broken. The Dolphins are broken. I think the Dolphins are probably broken. But maybe the Colts under Daniel Jones could actually be something special. So I think everything that we saw week 1, we do have to take with a little bit of a grain of salt. Maybe the Packers defense just is that good. Maybe the Lions aren't broken.
Let me ask you this. If you had right now the choice between starting a franchise today with Jordan Love or Jayden Daniels, I would take Jayden Daniels. I just gave Jordan 100%. Love all the praise in the world. But, 100%. I cannot get over what I saw last year, right? Like, there is an element for me where what we saw last year combined with what we knew was coming into the draft, it was so clear, even covering the draft, when you heard some of the rumors of teams trying to trade up a king's ransom in Washington saying, no, we're not even listening. Of course they weren't listening because everybody that looked at Jayden Daniels said, man, there's a real chance to be special here. It was special. If I had to pick one of these two quarterbacks to start a franchise with today, it's Jayden, and it's not even close.
It's not even close because he essentially restarted a franchise in 1 year. I mean, the Commanders were in the depths of the NFL. The Commanders were swimming through not just the sea of suck, but the sea of controversy for so long. And you insert Jayden Daniels, and all of a sudden, that was the spark plug that you needed to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So I would say I would agree with that 100%. When you're starting a, this proverbial fake fantasy, football team, you want a guy that can do it all. You want a guy that can elevate the team around him. You want a guy that can do things that a lot of other people can't do. We saw Jayden Daniels do that last season, elevate an entire franchise. We saw Jayden Daniels do that in his college days at LSU. And I know that college doesn't always translate to the NFL, but I think at least with 1 year of a sample size of Jayden Daniels, we saw him recreate what he did at LSU, which was elevate one of the worst defenses that I have truly ever seen in college football and turn them into a 9-3 football team.
Yeah, there's no doubt that tonight will be an epic display, and we will continue to break down all the NFL and college football action you need. We've also got a breakdown coming on the Breaking Clippers news, but coming up next, now we're going to get into some celebrity guest action here. We'll talk a little bit of the Major League Baseball world right now as it stands. Panic in Philly? We'll figure it out. Jake Mintz joins the show next. 50. 50 from Jake Mintz. That's just a simple tweet to express a great moment as Schwarber hits his 50th home run. I just really respect the fact that Jake Mintz avoided saying the great phrase 50 burger. I've never understood 50 burger. I don't like 50 burger. I don't think 50 burger should exist. But Jake Mintz now joins us from the Baseball Barbercast podcast right here, hanging out with us. You've been in Philly. Okay, so you've seen this Mets-Phillies series up close. I'm going to play Polly Positive, and I'm going to pretend they both make the postseason. Everybody's happy, right? Which of these two teams, after seeing them up close and personal, Jake, do you believe is better poised to go on a postseason run?
At the beginning of the year, I would have said the Phillies. At this point, it's still the Phillies. The Mets look discombobulated. They look disjointed. So the Mets have wanted to become the Yankees now under Steve Cohen and his big bag of money for a couple years. And they're getting closer to that, and also in a bad way. The Yankees have this superiority complex about them where they think that everything's going to be okay because they are the Yankees and they're good at what they do. And the Mets have adopted a little bit of that this year, where last year they were this rollicking circus of baseball chaos. This season, they just feel like a bunch of parts that don't fit together. And then from the pitching side, they do not have it. They don't have the starting pitching, in my opinion, to go deep. For the Phillies, on the other hand, this week, I really like what I've seen.
Yeah, we have a term in the NFL, the Jets are going to jet. The Mets are going to Met. The Mets are just going to, doesn't matter how much money they spend, doesn't matter how much talent they acquire, the Mets are just going to Met.
So that's a great point. And I think that in many ways, the Mets have unmetsed themselves over the last couple of years. I think that you can correct me if I'm wrong. The Jets just do weird things that would only happen to the Jets. And it's does the Mets aren't really doing that anymore, right? It's a different type of disappointment that is being unfurled. It is less overtly embarrassing. It's not back page headline. It's just regular unfortunate outcomes.
All right, so Jake, I'm going to ask you a very, very blunt question. Pardon the pun. Okay, we are teammates. We are new teammates, right? I don't drink. So for anyone that doesn't know, I gave up alcohol about 1.5 years ago. So you wrote a story about MLB players drinking less and how it's impacting locker rooms. Now, I would never say I'm sober because I partake in a lot of edibles. I'm just really, frankly, very open about that. So I was interested in your article. What impact do you think that this is making in ballparks and in locker rooms that guys are drinking?
Yeah. So it is part of a trend in American society generally. Americans have never drank less than they do right now. And that is particularly true of people under 40 and particularly true of men ages 20 to 35, which in the past was a pretty heavy drinking demographic. And that's a demographic that overlaps almost exactly with Major League Baseball players. And I found this was something I kind of have picked up on over the years. Players just weren't cracking open beers in the locker room after games. And stories that I had heard about the history of the sport, you have this image of, sweaty ball player in their sliding shorts sitting in front of their locker, crushing a Budweiser. And I just wasn't seeing that. And I was curious as to why. And so I started asking around because baseball players feel particularly predisposed to drinking culture, right? During the season, they're on the road half the time. They're playing every night, and they're around dudes ages 21 to 35. Their job finishes at night, right? Their heart rate is high at 10 p.m. and they need to find a way to wind down and decompress. And in the past, that was almost exclusively alcohol as the vice. Now that has shifted significantly over the last 10 years or so.
You mentioned, I will say quickly, I spent so much of my life on a tour bus. You're describing the life that I lived, right? And so I understand everything you're saying. How much in your mind has the normalization of marijuana and the way that particularly athletes are it used to be you had to hide in a Taco Bell parking lot hoping you weren't getting discovered. Now you can just walk around anywhere, right? So how much has that sort of impacted the fact that it's normalized by athletes, particularly this entire process?
So it's a big deal. And I think baseball specifically has a more conservative culture than some of the other professional American sports. And in my piece, I talked about one anonymous big league manager whose best player, in fact, he found out his best player was taking, gummies after games. And he had, at first, the manager was like, oh my God, this is going to ruin his career, right? Because in his mind, there was a stigma associated with it, with laziness or being lackadaisical and not driven, where in reality, this player was just trying to decompress in a healthy, purposeful way late at night after games. And over time, the manager started to realize that that was a better thing. And look, if you're a skipper, would you rather have your players out until 3 a.m. at a bar getting into trouble, or sitting on the couch, having an edible and playing video games and going to sleep, right? Like, I know what I would prefer. Now, there is one downside, if you want to call it a downside, is that it is now a little bit harder, players have told me, to create camaraderie and socialization, because it was easier in the past to just be like, hey, game's over, we're going out. Now, guys are kind of more solitary in what they do post-game, and that means the team leaders just need to be more proactive about how they establish that culture.
Babe Ruth is just rolling around in his grave at the thought of baseball players taking care of their bodies and not cracking open beers and eating hot dogs. But
how dare they?
Ruth, and how dare they? How dare they is
how
correct. Speaking of the Yankees, though, the AL wild card race, we've got, the AL East kind of dominating that 2 through 4 spot, but it's incredibly tight near the bottom. So can Texas, can Cleveland potentially kind of eke their way into a wild card spot where it stands?
Sure. But here's my frank answer. I don't care. I think that the bottom of it is so messy and chaotic that I almost need to wait until the last week, because we've seen a lot of pretenders poke their head up like a meerkat for 3 minutes. We had this with the Royals. They're like, we're close. And then the Tampa Bay Rays were like, we're around. And I don't believe in any of them until they prove that. Until further notice, Seattle, I think, will take that last wildcard spot. They had a huge win, walk-off home run in the 13th inning, I believe, last night that I stayed up for some reason here on the East Coast. I think they'll have the horses to outlast these other teams. The very scintillating thing here is that it would create a Yankees-Red Sox wildcard round in the first round of the playoffs, best of 3, home field to the top seed. And that's really what these two teams are jockeying for now. They face off this weekend in Boston for a 3-game set that might determine the seeding for the playoffs.
You stayed up late to watch Seattle, which we approve of in this show because we're a Big Dumper show. We are Big Dumper stands.
I don't approve of it because they walked off my team. But whatever.
Okay.
But enjoy your Big Dumper party today.
Well, look, we're a Big Dumper show. Look, we're openly
You're a big dumper show.
Yeah, we're big,
huge Big Dumper fans. Yeah,
that is.
Yeah,
I don't know if there are any limits on how many times we can say Big Dumper, but we are trying to actually push that limit.
Yeah.
Jay, Big Dumper getting the AL MVP somehow, some way. How do we make it happen?
I think he's still involved. I think he's still in it. I was expecting Aaron Judge to kind of run away with it in September, but Judge's injury to his throwing arm has limited him. He's not playing the outfield every day. And it's hard to say that it hasn't reduced his impact at the plate. He's still good. He hasn't been elite since the All-Star break. And Cal Raleigh is just hanging around. The rate of big dumps he's taking over the fence has tailed off a little bit, but not a whole lot. And this season remains historic. He's now pressing towards the all-time record for a switch hitter for homers hit in the season. That's held by Mickey Mantle. He's just a couple of homers away. I do think there will be some voter fatigue. I think this is something you see in a lot of other sports, right? LeBron, has 4 MVPs, which is hilarious because just people got tired of voting for him. There could be an element of that at play. Whether or not there should be is a different debate. I don't have a vote this year. So I can just say I would probably vote for Cal just because the uniqueness of the season he's having, I think, does deserve that special recognition.
Yeah, you don't have a vote, but if you get a +1 to that wild card matchup between the Red Sox and the Yankees, I'm in Connecticut. Call me. Jake, check out the Baseball Barbecast podcast across. Yeah, we'll come up to it all the time. Check out the show across the Yahoo Sports networks. Jake, we appreciate you getting up with us, even after a late night of watching the Big Dumper. Just had to get Dumper in one more time, brother.
It's okay. I just watched the highlights this morning. I don't even need a cup of coffee. Thank you, folks, for having
me. There we go. Thank you, Jake. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Jake.
From Major League Baseball to breaking news in the NBA, the latest on Kawhi, the Clippers, and salary cap circumvention. It's big, and we'll break it down next on Yahoo Sports Daily. This morning, we got breaking news and this exclusive from Pablo Torre that Kawhi Leonard's $1.75 million no-show payday was running late. Then, per new documents obtained by Pablo, the Clippers co-owner invested $1.99 million in the team's broke sponsor. 9 days later, Kawhi got paid. It's beyond shocking, an aspiration executive says. We are going to break down the latest, greatest with it right now from the great Tom Haberstroh, our teammate here. Tom, appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us early this morning. I was shocked. I'm just trying to work out this morning, just trying to get my pre-show workout in, and all of a sudden Pablo's out here breaking more news. He's doing this in layers. There's levels to what Pablo's doing. So what was your initial reaction to the latest report from Pablo?
Yeah, if you didn't think the initial report was the smoking gun, this is the smoking gun. This is an explosive report from Pablo Torre, and Pablo Torre finds out. I encourage everyone to watch the entire episode, because while that tweet does describe some of the details revealed in this report, it isn't even hold a candle to all the other stuff in this report from Pablo Torre, namely that in the Board of Governors meeting, where all 30 owners of the NBA met yesterday, this week in New York City, Adam Silver, according to Pablo Torre, in that meeting, did not bring up the Steve Ballmer, Kawhi Leonard aspiration investigation, which left the other owners to just do these side discussions like, wait, how are we not even addressing that in the Board of Governors meeting with potentially the biggest scandal in the 21st century in the NBA? This is huge that right now what we're seeing in this report is that not just Steve Ballmer was involved with aspiration, but a miraculous payment while the company was spinning down the drain financially and they were dry of funds. A miraculous payment came from the co-owner of the Clippers, Dennis Wong, whose daughter, as Pablo Torre revealed in this episode and reported, is that his daughter was employed by Aspiration. So the intermingling of these two entities, the Clippers, Aspiration, and Kawhi Leonard, is getting even stronger. And it's a web that is tightening around Steve Ballmer and the Clippers. And the fact that this payment came in of just under $2 million when Kawhi Leonard was due just under $2 million. If I'm the other owners, and if I'm a fan of the NBA, I look at the totality of this evidence presented at this point and just say, what else do I need to see? Like, it is very clear that something is amiss here. That if you're trying to uphold the integrity of the NBA, you have to drop the hammer on Steve Ballmer if these allegations are true, because what this presents is a blueprint, you guys. This presents a blueprint. If Adam Silver does not come down with a very strong punishment and statement against Steve Ballmer and the Clippers, what this does is it gives a blueprint for all the other teams. If they want to circumvent the cap, here's how you do it. You just get a second company, funnel a bunch of money through there. You don't even have to have him do an endorsement deal that makes him endorse the company or provide any services. And you can just pay him through that company and everything's good. If they get off on this, then every team has the blueprint to circumvent the cap. And so Adam Silver has a very important decision upcoming here, is based on the law firm's investigation and what they find and what Pablo Torre has found and surfaced. There is a lot at stake, including the integrity of the NBA itself.
I think the way that Adam Silver approaches this could wildly impact not just the modern day NBA, but how, NBA owners approach their business moving forward. I mean, it feels like such a pivotal moment in the league. And Adam Silver spoke with reporters yesterday at the NBA owners meetings, and he said that he has never heard of the company aspiration, that so much of this he just had no idea was going on behind the scenes. Tom, am I wrong for thinking that I'm really hard pressed to believe that Adam Silver didn't know of any, potential wrongdoing or potential, hairy stuff and nefarious things going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, I certainly raised my eyebrows on that one when he said he had never heard of Aspiration, which announced a $330 million sponsorship deal with one of the crown jewels of the NBA, the LA Clippers. That's a huge investment, and one that I think the NBA would be very proud to keep an eye on and say, hey, we just had one of our teams that just a few short years ago was embroiled in one of the bigger scandals in NBA history, in the Donald Sterling tapes. And now we have this company investing over $300 million to be a founding sponsor. What a great story that is, in terms of a business success. So and also they agreed to be the jersey patch sponsor. So Aspiration, before it went under, Aspiration was supposed to be the jersey patch sponsor for the LA Clippers. Again, Steve Ballmer is the richest of all of the owners in the NBA. And for the commissioner to not understand or hear about the largest sponsorship deal of one of its teams, that's hard to believe. And I do think that when you talk about Adam Silver and the press conference yesterday that he had after the Board of Governors meeting, it did seem like he was on the defensive. The tone of it was on the defensive. He said he would be reluctant to act if there was the appearance of impropriety. He said there was due process that needed to be done. A lot of these things seemed like he was on the defense rather than on the attack and saying, like, the integrity of the league is at stake. We cannot have teams funneling millions of dollars to third parties to star players in order to circumvent the cap. If this was David Stern, I'd imagine he would have come out in the opening remarks of that press conference and explained the gravity and how important it is, the massive implications of what's being alleged here, and how the NBA needs to make sure this does not happen in the league. Instead, he had basically laid out the groundwork of the law firm bringing the investigation to their table, and that he would have to have a lot of evidence. But in the CBA, there is strict language in there that says all you need is circumstantial evidence to see a violation of cap circumvention. You just have to rationally explain why you're investing $28 million and having a reported $20 million in stock value, and then another random investment of $2 million that might not seem so random when you consider that company was supposed to pay Kawhi Leonard $1.75 million in endorsement deal that he was not even endorsing the company. Remember, this endorsement deal with Kawhi Leonard didn't come with an announcement from Aspiration. You would have never have known that Kawhi Leonard was endorsing this green bank unless Pablo Torre made this investigation and brought these interesting details to light. So the fact that Kawhi Leonard, what appears to be a no-show job, is getting paid just under $2 million by one of these companies that both Steve Ballmer and the co-owner of the Clippers is investing in, man, other teams are writing this down, being like, if this is all it takes to circumvent the cap and we don't get fined for this or punished for this, let's go. Open season.
It's just a coincidence, Tom. That's 6 days prior, the co-owner of the Clippers invested $2 million into this random company that just happened to pay out Kawhi Leonard $1.7 million less than a week later. It's just a coincidence. But, you mentioned the no-show kind of sponsorships, but this isn't the first time that we've seen that with Kawhi Leonard. There was some recent reporting that showed that Kawhi Leonard and Uncle Dennis Robertson, Kawhi Leonard's representation, asked for these things in Toronto. No-show sponsorships, partial ownership in the Toronto Maple Leafs. How does Kawhi and Uncle Dennis continue to get away with this?
Well, they hadn't gotten away with it until, these revelations came about, in the sense that there, in Bruce Arthur's reporting with the Toronto Raptors, there was what appeared to be a $10 million endorsement deal where, quote, we didn't want to do anything. That this framework of a pact, a cap circumvention scheme was already offered to the Toronto Raptors, where Uncle Dennis reportedly was asking for an endorsement deal, or a deal where he didn't have to do anything, but still wanted his money anyway. And then now we see that the framework of such a deal, or the appearance of that framework, is being reported by Pablo Torre, finds out, with the Los Angeles Clippers, the team that he did leave the Toronto Raptors for. And I should also point out this. I have seen people say, hey, the max contract was signed. So this whole quid pro quo of like, hey, Kawhi, just take less than the max and we'll pay you $7 million to make up for that difference. That didn't happen here. But what I would say is that the max contract rule is inviting cap circumvention from teams. Because if you're only allowed to pay Kawhi Leonard $50 million, but you have to win him over the Lakers, over the Knicks, over other teams, how else are you going to woo and court Kawhi Leonard? Well, Uncle Dennis seems to have figured out one of the ways is to have this money being routed through a sponsorship company that would get paid to an account that Pablo Torre is reporting, KL2 Aspire LLC, where Kawhi Leonard's name and signature is attached to this document, this endorsement contract. This max contract did seem to have some sweeteners in it from Uncle Dennis's side, is that he was able to get a endorsement contract from this sham company that was going to give him $28 million without lifting a finger. So this is, not just this one little piece of evidence. This is a pattern of events. Remember, guys, the investigation isn't just about this. The investigation, the league has already investigated Steve Ballmer in 2015 for cap circumvention and hit him with a $250,000 fine because they offered a similar deal, in the sense that Steve Ballmer and the Clippers presented DeAndre Jordan in 2015 in the free agency saga with the Dallas Mavericks, presented a sponsorship deal that, according to the LA Times, was a Lexus sponsorship deal with DeAndre Jordan, in which he would be paid $200,000 a year. And so they were found enough wrongdoing for Adam Silver to come down with a $250,000 fine in 2015. And then there was Doc Rivers with tampering in 2019 ahead of Kawhi Leonard's free agency. So this isn't just about aspiration. This is about a continuance of Steve Ballmer and the Clippers towing that line of cap circumvention and doing whatever it takes, again, above the rules, below the rules, to get Kawhi Leonard and to keep Kawhi Leonard happy. And so this isn't just an isolated incident. This is multiple times we have seen Kawhi Leonard be the subject of investigation along with Steve Ballmer, and also enough to punish them in 2015.
Tom, you know this league so well, so walk me through a common sense piece, because as we get the reporting, the Raptors were asked to make concessions outside of the cap they weren't comfortable with. How in the hell did they not go to the NBA when he signed with the Clippers and say, hey, here's what Kawhi asked us to do. We should probably take a look at this. Are we sure everything's on the up and up? Like, don't the Raptors have some obligation to report that they were being asked to do something that was outside of the rules by Kawhi's camp?
Right. And don't forget, there was an investigation regarding Jerry West and some promises he made in Kawhi Leonard's circle for $2.5 million being paid from Johnny Wilkes, who is a confidant of Uncle Dennis, was expecting a $2.5 million payment and filed lawsuit against Jerry West and the Los Angeles Clippers saying, hey, you were supposed to pay me $2.5 million to help bring Kawhi Leonard home to the Clippers, and you reneged on that deal. And he sued the Clippers, and that lawsuit was thrown out because there wasn't a hard evidence. In the court of law, you need more than just circumstantial evidence. But without, Jerry West writing down, I will pay you $2.5 million because you will help me try to land Kawhi Leonard as a free agent. Jerry West working as a consultant for the Clippers at that time. This is not just about the Toronto Raptors. There have been multiple investigations into Kawhi Leonard, and I do think that the Toronto Raptors raised up enough stink here in order to get media reports, in order to get people saying this is not okay. What Uncle Dennis is doing and what other teams are being asked to do, the NBA has opened up an investigation, but wasn't able to find any sort of hard evidence for them to bring any sort of punishment against Steve Ballmer and the Clippers at that point. But there has been so much smoke around this, but there is no more smoke than what we have gotten on Thursday morning from Pablo Torre finds out. I find this report to be even more damning for the Los Angeles Clippers and Steve Ballmer and Dennis Wong, his co-owner, than even the first report. Because this one, it brings in another character into this story. The co-owner, Steve Ballmer's college roommate at Harvard, a guy who introduced Steve Ballmer to Jerry West, and then Jerry West is enwrapped in this other controversy with Johnny Wilkes back in 2019. This web is going to be very difficult for the Clippers to unwrap themselves and to disentangle themselves from this web. But man, I got to imagine that the other teams are watching to see what Adam Silver does here, because remember, the NBA All-Star Game in 2026 is in LA. It is at Intuit Dome, and you can be rest assured that Steve Ballmer wants to be the face of that NBA All-Star Game, and we'll see if the NBA allows him to do that.
What, in your mind, Tom, right now, based on what we know, what would be the appropriate punishment for the Clippers and for Kawhi that would send a message to the league?
Well, what we know is that the NBA did drop the hammer on the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2000 when a cap circumvention scandal happened with Joe Smith, where they had these under-the-table agreements with Joe Smith to take 3 years of small money in order to have a fourth agreement of huge money, upwards of $80 million. And in that case, there was a paper trail and a written document that said, hey, we need to agree to these terms under the table, cap circumvention, and the NBA and David Stern dropped the hammer. I mean, we're talking 5 first-round picks, $3.5 million, which represented 10% of the cap back in 2000, and also a suspension of Glenn Taylor, the owner, and Kevin McHale, the leader of the basketball operations for the Minnesota Timberwolves, a suspension for a year. So it's picks. It's a lot of money, a $7-figure dollar fine. And you're also talking about suspending Steve Ballmer for a year if they use that rubric and blueprint for what could be coming for the Los Angeles Clippers. But I would say that I have talked to executives around the league that wonder if Adam Silver and Wachtell, the firm, the legal team that is being commissioned by the NBA to investigate Steve Ballmer and the Clippers and these allegations, I wonder if they see, as the CBA is written, that this is even more than cap circumvention, that perhaps Adam Silver, as he said yesterday in the press conference, that he has broad latitude in terms of adjudicating something like this, the power to punish. I wonder if this isn't just going to be about cap circumvention. I wonder if this gets at something larger than that. The integrity of the league is at stake. Like I keep saying this because Adam Silver has said cap circumvention before. He has said this before. It is a cardinal sin in the NBA. The NBA believes that cap circumvention is at the heart, the core of having a level playing field. And if we have the richest owner in the NBA also trying to do under the table agreements with a star player, that could potentially open up Pandora's box for the NBA if they are not found to be liable for any sort of punishment. I got to imagine that all these teams are looking at this and saying, hey, if they can get away with this, then it's open season for us.
I could talk to you about this for 2 hours, but that's what the big number exists for. Check out the big number right here on Yahoo Sports. Tom Haberstroh doing great work, man. I always appreciate your insight. Thanks for coming on with us super early this morning. We appreciate you, my friend.
You got it. No problem.
Great stuff. And again, Tom just said it, and I'll say it again. Check out the entire Pablo interview. That stuff is great. Coming up, The NBA might want to send the Clippers on a walk of shame, but we got somebody else we'll send on a walk of shame next. Northwestern, we're coming to your city. Big Noon Kickoff will be bringing the party to Evanston, Illinois, ahead of the matchup with Oregon football at noon Eastern on Fawkes. Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Caroline, I know how you feel. I know you love this. My friend, I shall give you the floor because I think you've got some thoughts on this. We may not agree completely, but I shall give you the floor, my friend. Your thoughts on Big Noon Kickoff for Northwestern and Oregon.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take someone down the walk of shame here. Oregon Northwestern. What a thrilling matchup between two college football heavyweights. Because when it comes to the biggest game of the day for your conference and your network, nothing screams big time game like a 28-point spread at Northwestern. My goodness, what a great matchup. I'm kidding. That's sarcasm if nobody could notice. And there's a few elements here that I would like to take down the walk of shame. That's sad, frankly, that is the best game that you have to offer this week. But I can't really blame Fawkes for how bad the slate is, right? I mean, the schedules are what the schedules are. Fawkes just has to take the most important one. So it's not like I have a problem with Fawkes choosing this game. I have a problem with the fact that this is the best game, first and foremost. Second of all, does this not just show how the Big Ten's TV deal is such a bad deal for these networks? That between Fox, NBC, and CBS, they are paying combined over $1 billion, with a B, $1 billion for the Big Ten television rights. And this is the best that they get? Oregon, Northwestern? And CBS gets the second best game of the week. And what they get is, USC Purdue? That CBS is paying $1 billion a year for USC Purdue? It was a bad deal. It feels like so much worse of a deal now because the products that they have. And I think that this week is the perfect example of that, because on a week where Fox, Big Noon, this thrilling Big Ten matchup between Oregon and Northwestern, you also have Tennessee, Georgia, a massive game with massive college football playoff and SEC implications. You get Florida, LSU. The CW gets a better game than Fox and CBS. The CW gets USF Miami. I mean, USF just beat Florida last week. Like, this is a game that actually has postseason implications. The CW gets that game, and you get Oregon, Northwestern, and you're paying $1 billion for it. And I think overall, my biggest problem with all of this is just maybe a much larger perspective of it all. Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten, has been pushing for an expanded playoff, has been pushing for 4 automatic bids from the Big Ten and from the SEC and for some of these play-in games to go into the playoff. That Tony Petitti is pushing for massive changes, structural changes to the college football playoff postseason. And it's probably because he wants to make these TV contracts, last. He wants to keep these TV contracts intact, because if I'm Fox and if I'm CBS, specifically if I'm CBS, I'm pissed off about this deal that I have, because I'm paying $1 billion for it, and I get Oregon, Northwestern, and USC Purdue. It was a bad deal, and Tony Petitti is trying to make it right. And in order for Tony Petitti to make it right, he's kind of ruining the postseason structure in the process.
So I love your walk of shame. I think I'm going to take a little spin on this, because I don't disagree with anything you just said. But I think we need to specifically take pregame shows down the walk of shame. And I will say this, full disclosure, I was out with Game Day for a year. You know this. I traveled with Game Day for a year. I hosted the first ever digital show that was a pregame countdown to Game Day. So it was me, Maria Taylor, and David Pollack for a year hosting, and I was part of this process. So for anyone that doesn't know, you truly do not know a game day. We would be sitting there late Saturday night checking our phone, refreshing, because we genuinely did not know where we were going the next week. And I've been in the room when they were having the debates and the discussions about it. And I think pregame shows in general need to remember what they're really there to do. In theory, what we think they're there to do is to serve the sports fan. But what I learned being out on the road is that they're really there just to hype up whatever their favorite matchup is on their network. And this is a great moment and a reminder that pregame shows, all of them, from Game Day to Big Noon, are all trashing the very consumers that watch them. Why? Because they're not really doing what their job is. Their job is to get you hyped for a great Sunday, or Saturday, I should say, of college football. Just like NFL Countdown and any of the shows that you want to watch on Sunday are there to talk about all the games to get you excited. Saturdays are for getting you excited about college football. To do that in a genuine way, you should not give a damn about who's broadcasting what. You should go to the best site, and you should let the best site of the best game be the biggest moment in college football. I squarely remember moments when I was on the road with Game Day where we would sit there and say, oh, God, the bosses would sit there and say, God, well, we can't go to that game because Fawkes is going to be there and we don't want to be at the same spot. If we have to go to that game, we will. But if we can do anything to avoid it, we don't want to be in the same spot. My question always then was, why? All right, if you are confident in your pregame show, then put your pregame show wherever your pregame show can let college football shine. If Big Noon really wants to come out and crush in ratings and suddenly become a true competitor to Game Day week in and week out, which sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't, the only way that Big Noon is ever going to accomplish that, to me, is if they don't allow themselves to be sort of an afterthought. Northwestern Oregon is an afterthought of a game. You're stuck putting there at noon, fine. I don't have a problem with the noon kickoff. But to put your Big Noon show there, understanding that the environment will not be anything like it is at, let's say, Georgia, Tennessee, the minute somebody clicks on that channel, they don't care about what game you've got coming up. They care about the fact that they don't see chaos. These shows work well because they are live in front of audiences with chaos. That's why Game Day passionately travels that show every single week, because they want the chaos around it. You won't have chaos at Oregon, at Northwestern, nearly the way that you would have chaos at any of the other matchups you mentioned. At some point, we as a college football community need to ask more of our pregame shows. And that means Game Day, and that means Big Noon. It means stop lying to us and pretending that you're trying to give us a great pregame show, and start being honest with us about the fact that you just want a 3-hour advertisement for whatever game you hope you can generate the most ratings for. It's disingenuous and it's disrespectful to college football fans. So my walk of shame here isn't even to the fact that it's a noon kickoff between Oregon, or that they're focusing on this Oregon Northwestern game. My walk of shame is the fact that they're sending Big Noon kickoff to this when every single person in that studio and every single person that works for Fox Sports in LA, I've been on that campus, every single person that works on that campus knows that they are lying to college football fans by putting Big Noon there and trying to pretend that that is one of the elite matchups of Saturday.
And look, it's all very well said. And again, I'm not walking them down the plank because that's, just the best game on their network and that's what they feel like they have to do. I'm really walking down the the walk of shame to all of the executives that thought that this package was worth $9 billion, because this slate is an example that it's not. Because Oregon Northwestern, where does that rank to you in terms of big games this weekend? Florida LSU, I would say, is bigger. Georgia Tennessee, I would say, is bigger. I would say USF Miami is bigger. I would say Ole Miss Arkansas is bigger. I would say Clemson Georgia Tech is bigger. Wisconsin Alabama, I would say, is a bigger game. We're now at 6. Am I missing
Texas
any
A&M
of them?
Texas A&M Notre Dame.
Texas A&M Notre Dame. How could I forget the biggest game? I mean, probably of the weekend. That's 7. I mean,
hell, I would take South Carolina Vandy over. Northwestern is not a serious football
I don't
program.
disagree.
This is going to be a slaughter. It's going to be a slaughter of a game.
It's a 28-point spread, and I would take Oregon to lay the points. This is not an anti-Oregon or Northwestern sentiment. Let me just say that for the record. I think Oregon is one of the best teams in the country. This is really just is this really the best that you got? That's the best you can give us.
Just shame on everybody for pretending that they're actually serving sports fans on Saturdays by the way that they program these pregame shows. All right, we've got a big second hour coming up for you on Yahoo Sports Daily. It's a Thursday edition, and we're going to figure out who's going into a trap weekend in the NFL and in college football. We'll do it next. Yahoo Sports Daily. Welcome back to hour number 2 of a Thursday edition of Yahoo Sports Daily. She is Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. It just feels like we've been running this morning. It has been a sprint of a morning with breaking news everywhere. Like we're in great cardio shape on this show at this point. So let's get hour 2 rolling the way we got hour 1 rolling. Well, I don't know about me. Quick sprints. It's 30 seconds on off. It's a sprinting regimen. I'll take you on it anytime.
Sprint, not a marathon.
I can't marathon. Let's get into our 3 points as we do every single hour. Caroline Fenton, what is on your mind?
Yeah, stop me if you've heard this before. Injury news coming out of San Francisco. Unfortunately, while it was initially reported by Tom Pelissero that Brock Purdy would be a, quote, long shot to play in week 2, this new news coming out just this morning from Ian Rappaport that Brock Purdy is likely to miss the next 2 to 5 weeks with turf toe. So the 49ers have a matchup with the Saints coming up this weekend. And frankly, even with Mac Jones as the backup coming in and Brock Purdy's absence, I think that the 49ers still have the quarterback advantage with Mac Jones over Spencer Rattler in New Orleans. But they have the Saints coming up this weekend. Then they have the Arizona Cardinals. So he will be out for at least those 2 games. And then after these next 2 weeks, his availability will be determined by how his rehab goes. So Brock Purdy, now TBD. I still think that this Saints game, even with Mac Jones coming in as the starter, is a game that the 49ers absolutely can win. I think this is still a game that the 49ers probably should win, just giving the lack of talent on that Saints roster. But this is a massive concern for this 49ers team. I said it all offseason that if the 49ers can stay healthy, majority healthy for majority of a 17-game season, they're Super Bowl contenders. But they have been injury prone. George Kittle is on IR with a hamstring injury. Brandon Ayuk is dealing with an ACL, MCL injury. Now Brock Purdy. Juwan Jennings has been banged up. Christian McCaffrey, while he's healthy now, you can't really count on him to stay available for the better part of 17 weeks. So it begs the question, is this 49ers window just starting to close with the age and the injuries that have been plaguing this team over the past couple of years? Again, if they're healthy, they're Super Bowl contenders, but it's just 1 week in, and we're already having question marks about the most important position on the football field, and that's Brock Purdy, their starting quarterback.
Which, if you've been listening to the show for any amount of time, you would have known. We've been talking about this for a minute, and now it rears its ugly head. It is part of who the 49ers are. Great point by you. I will get to my first point of the hour, and it comes in the form of some PGA fun. We get the FedEx Cup Fall. It's about to kick off the Procore Championship at Silverado Resort in Napa. Kicks it off with the Powerhouse Field. All right, we're headlined by world number one Scotty Scheffler. We all know that wouldn't be anything if it wasn't Scotty Scheffler. But he makes his debut alongside 9 U.S. Ryder Cup teammates. You see them there. Sam Burns, Patrick Cantlay, Harris English, Ben Griffin, Russell Henley, Colin Morikawa, J.J. Spawn, Justin Thomas, and Cameron Young, aiming to shake off any postseason rust after the Americans' 2023 loss in Rome. Sorry, still too soon to talk about it. Tune-up event doubles as a team-building opportunity. Also, Keegan Bradley, remember, decided not to play. Instead, he's just going to be a captain. So he's there on site to foster chemistry and to test potential pairings. So early tee times hinting at a possible Bethpage Black duos like Scheffler, Henley, Cantlay, Burns. Looks like it could be good. For Scheffler, fresh off 2 major wins, 5 total victories this year. We all know he's been dominating. The recently linked Silverado course presents a bit of an opportunity. He's going to be able to extend his dominance on a layout favoring elite ball strikers. And no, I didn't think I'd be saying elite ball strikers on anything today. Beyond the Ryder Cup stars, past winner Max Homa looks to capitalize on his Napa familiarity. He's one of 144 others that are battling for 2026 PGA Tour status. Adding intrigue because we like a little bit of drama. Bubble players like Joel Damon and Keith Mitchell fight to stay inside the top 125. So the event is high-stakes survival, and it starts the fall series. We will keep you updated on all the PGA news you need as we get a little bit of action. It's going to be fun to watch that unfold. And now, our main point for this Thursday, we're going to do something new. We're going to do the Thursday Thirst Trap, all right? So this is what we're going to do.
Not the one Thursday, you think, you sickos.
Well,
Get your head out of the gutter.
This isn't going to be much less sick. That's it. We're going to get weird, all right? So we're going to do this every Thursday. It's the Thirst Trap, and we will each identify one game on this slate. It could be college football. It could be NFL. It could be anything. It could be kickball. I don't care. One game that we know is a trap. Do not fall for it. The favorite is not to be trusted. So, Caroline Fenton, my friend, you get the first call.
Yes.
What's your trap, your Thirst Trap game?
My first Thursday Thirst Trap is Clemson and Georgia Tech. And Clemson's only a 2.5-point favorite. And of course, it is on the road. This game is being played in Atlanta. Oh, that's fantastic.
That is delightful.
Look at that Dabo Swinney Thirst Trap showing off his tiger. And honestly, why does Dabo kind of look like the Tiger King?
It kind of works.
Like, it kind of works.
I'm not trying to make Dabo an actor. He's a good football coach. But maybe if there was a new film to come out where we needed somebody to play the Tiger King, maybe Dabo could do that. Like, that's it. It's amazing how the haircut is just so signature. The jacket, by the way, Dabo should definitely wear on the sidelines this
100%.
week. But the haircut is really the signature portion of it.
And the handlebar mustache. I don't know if Dabo's ever considered, getting in on the facial hair game, but maybe he should. We'll send this
a philosophical question
listening?
on this
Yes,
picture.
Of course.
Why do you dye the hair so perfectly and then not dye the handlebar? I've never understood this. Like, why do you want color differentiation? I don't understand it.
I guess you just can't decide. So you do both. Like if you don't know if you want a pepperoni pizza or a veggie pizza, you just get like a half and half. So maybe Dabo, aka the Tiger King, is going for like, I don't know if I want to be a blonde or a brunette. Yeah, blondes have more fun, but also maybe the brunette makes me feel a little bit more serious. So we're just going to do a little half and half. We're going to do a little bit of a you pick two. I don't know.
I
It's
like
quite
this.
the look, though. I don't dislike it.
Do you dislike Clemson, Georgia Tech as a trap game?
I do like this potentially as a trap game. But like I said, Clemson's only a 2.5-point favorite on the road, granted, but I think everybody else, Vegas, is kind of viewing this as a potential trap game as well. And let me just state this for the record. I think Georgia Tech could be a trap game for literally any team on their schedule. The way that they play, Brent Key, their head coach, has instilled this culture in Georgia Tech that no, they might not have the most talent in the country, but they will out-physical anyone in the country. They play a smack you in the mouth, hard-nosed type of physicality up front, like grittiness type of style of football. And Clemson has kind of struggled over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, they dropped that week 1 game to LSU. They fell behind 16-0 to Troy last week. Now, they did battle back, so credit to them for finding a way to win the football game. But they've struggled looking overly physical. I go back to that week 1 game against LSU. This Clemson defensive front was sold to all of us as being one of the more physical units in all of college football. That there were 3 to 4 future NFL first-round picks on that defensive front, and an LSU offensive line that was replacing 4 starters didn't really seem to give up too much pressure. So I think that this Clemson team that has been a little bit of a question mark, that's looked way short of expectations so far through 2 weeks, going up a Georgia Tech team that is so sound, that is so physical, with a starting quarterback in Haynes King that will put his body on the line. I think that this could be a trap game. And if you don't believe me, go back and watch Georgia Tech, Georgia in the last week of the season last year. Georgia Tech took Georgia to eight overtimes in Athens. Georgia Tech spoiled Miami's college football playoff hopes last season. Why can't Georgia Tech do it again?
You are so right. And by the way, Haynes King plays with the violence at the quarterback position that is just unprecedented. Look, I think Clemson wins this football game, but I will no longer count Georgia Tech out of anything. And this is in part because I do, to your point, love the toughness with which they're coached. I also think that Haynes is just one of the toughest son of a biscuits I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's just that there is he takes hits that you think would decapitate most quarterbacks, and then he just pops right back up and keeps on going. So
he is like the true ultimate IDGAF kind of quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that you're not wrong. And for that reason, particularly also, Georgia Tech always comes up fired up. Like, that's one of the interesting things about playing against a team like Clemson. Even if Clemson is a little bit less this year early on, it doesn't change the fact that the Georgia Techs of the world are looking at this as their opportunity to take down a god, right? Like, it's their opportunity to go out and really be world beaters. So they get particularly amped up. I think Clemson's going to have to come out and get ready to just get punched over and over and over again. Again, I think Clemson wins this football game, but I like this call by you a lot. I'll give you an NFL thirst trap. You ready for an NFL thirst trap? I went deep. I went deep on this, and I'll be honest. Like, at first, I was looking at some other games that just weren't a big enough spread. Right now, the Ravens are a heavy favorite against the Browns, and I don't know. Like, I know. Wow, the first trap is John Harbaugh. Look. Since
when is John Harbaugh from the Jersey Shore?
I'm so jealous.
Is that a sangria, perhaps?
Look, there's no way you have abs like that and you're still drinking a sangria at his age. I mean, that's got to be like some calorie-free something. Like, I'm looking
protein
at that thinking,
sangria.
Like, I need 3 a days at this point, because 2 a days ain't going to get me to that. Like, my God, like, his abs have abs, and those tattoos. Like, that's well done by Harbaugh. I like.
Can we just give a shout out to our producer Doug Branson, who put these photoshops together? The detail. He has raven tattoos on his pecs.
Oh, that is
outstanding. Shout out to
God. I have so much body envy right now. It's not even funny. All right. But let me give you the why on this with the Ravens, as I can't stop staring at Harbaugh and the side eye. Harbaugh's even looking at the words thirst trap with a little bit of like, yeah, and what? Okay. So the Ravens are clearly far better than the Browns, but hear me out. The Browns were pluckier in week 1 against the Bengals than anybody expected. And the Ravens are coming off a truly emotional game. Now, I can see that going one of two ways. Like maybe you just throw away what happened at the end of it. You realize you melted down. You come in with the focus of the gods and you just absolutely annihilate them. I could buy that argument. I can also buy the argument that you just played a juggernaut of a Sunday night football game. It takes a little wind out of you. You're trying to get hyped up now for the Browns. I'm not sure that they can beat the Browns if they're less than themselves, and the Browns defense was really good in that game. So I think the Ravens win this game. But if I'm looking at a trap game, just the fact that you're coming off the emotion of what Sunday night football was and the emotion of that loss, I just wonder if there's a little bit of a hangover effect.
I totally buy into the Browns looking a lot better than we expected. Like they probably should have beaten the Bengals in week 1. Now, is that because the Browns are better than we thought or because the Bengals simply just cannot play quality football in the month of September? Maybe a little bit of both. I just have a really hard time thinking that the Ravens are going to tuck their tail between their legs after such a brutal loss.
Yeah,
like you could be 100% right, but I think the factor, like the we're pissed off factor, combined with the talent factor, the coach, the quarterback, the entire Ravens team that looks like one of the best teams in the National Football League, combined with the fact that they just got embarrassed again after giving up another fourth quarter double-digit lead. This team is going to come in with the thunder of the gods. They're going to be pissed off.
But what if, I want to go based on our week 1 arguments again, right? Like if we take everything we thought and we crumple it up and we throw it away and we just base on what we saw, Flacco was efficient in this game. Flacco was good enough to win this game. Flacco threw the ball pretty well. This Browns team looked good against the Bengals. I know it was like everybody wants to talk about the sloppiness of part of this, but the fact is like the Bengals are supposed to be a division contender, and they had a hard time moving a ball against this Browns defense that, by the way, just flat out committed murder multiple times. I mean, they just absolutely creamed Joe Burrow multiple times. So I think we all know that, right? So this defense and Myles Garrett particularly, they're going to be able to lay out some hits. They're going to be able to do some things. Like I think that there's an element of hope that comes from the fact that the Browns defense is better than we remember and their offense played better than it should have.
Every time I see a picture of Myles Garrett, I feel like his arms are photoshopped. Like, Doug, are you sure you didn't Photoshop this? Because my goodness gracious, that man could eat, another small human. I hear you. I hear you 100%. The way, though, I think that the Bengals are constructed is different than the Ravens. The Bengals don't have a guy named Derrick Henry. Like, if Myles Garrett is going to come in just absolutely looking to destroy Lamar Jackson, not only can Lamar Jackson evade that pressure, and of course Joe Burrow can do, let's not act like he's just some sort of statue of a quarterback there, but Lamar Jackson is more mobile and more dynamic with his legs than Joe Burrow is, as great as Joe Burrow is on the run. Derrick Henry adds another element of that having to pay attention to not just one of the best running backs in the NFL, but one of the best running quarterbacks in the NFL. It'll be interesting to me, this Browns defense that I think has a ton of talent up and down that side of the ball. It is always interesting to me, not just for the Browns, but any team that faces off against the Ravens, what their defensive game plan is. Because if you just want to sell out to stop the run, if you want to stack the box, well, Lamar Jackson can also pick you apart through the air. Like, they got plenty of talent at the receiver position, and vice versa. If you're going to sell out and stop the pass, well, Derrick Henry will run the ball down your throat, and we saw that on full display when he ran for a $170 against the Buffalo Bills. I always think divisional games are tough, even if it's against a team like the Browns that we don't feel like as a contender in the division. I just cannot get totally on board with it. I think I just have too much faith in this Ravens team to fall behind 0-2 against an AFC contender and then a divisional contender.
No, you're right. It's only a trap game. Like if these two teams play, or if these two teams play the way they're supposed to play, then the Ravens will crush them. I will say, with 4 minutes left to go Sunday, I felt really good about my call for Lamar for MVP and Derrick Henry for Offensive Player of the Year. So it just shows you how quickly things change. All right, from those thirst traps to a couple of huge matchups, including one involving LSU. Is LSU going to have a trap game against Florida? We'll break it down next. Yahoo Sports Daily. This is Brian Kelly. But it's not. It's sort of Brian Kelly. It's the Grok version of Brian Kelly as we continue our Thirst Trap Thursday theme on Yahoo Sports Daily. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. We'll get into the trap
as
game.
I hit
Are
my
we
mic.
in?
No, get that. No, do away with it, please.
I like this.
Get that
I like
off my
this.
screen.
I liked
Get
it.
off my screen. Blasphemy, I say.
Thought it looked good.
Blasphemy to say this LSU Florida game is a trap game, and he does look good. Let me just say, obviously that's not actually Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly is looking slim and trim. And he might be the only person in the history of the universe to move to South Louisiana and lose weight. Speaking from experience, there's a lot of indulgences to be had in that area of the country. But no, get it off my screen. No.
I don't know. I think it looks dashingly good.
Florida is not a trap game. And I do not say that as an LSU fan. I do not say that as somebody whose favorite team in the whole entire world is the LSU Tigers.
Go Tigers.
I say that because, thank you. I say that because LSU in Florida is a rivalry game. No, it's not the Iron Bowl. And no, it's not Florida State. And no, it's not Ohio State, Michigan, excuse me. But it is a rivalry game. These two teams hate each other, absolutely despise each other. They've played every single year. They've been the East-West, rivalry back in, remember the SEC and SEC West? Good old days. But they were the permanent rivalry every single year. These two teams, these two fan bases do not get along. And Fitz, I don't think that a rivalry and games that have been as weird as these games have been in recent history, I don't think these games can be considered trap games, because if you are overlooking your rival, if you are, getting trapped by a team that you play every single year and are very familiar with and has a very, long and rich history in and of itself, but also a long and rich history as, these two teams playing each other. If you look over that team, like, that's on you. Like, I can't consider rivalry games trap games.
Yeah, I think anybody that thinks this is a trap game, tell me you've never been to Baton Rouge for Florida LSU. I mean, like, I've been there for this matchup, and the floor in the stadium shakes. That's not an exaggeration. Yeah. Like, the floor in the stadium shakes. This game means so much to the fans, to the coaches, to the players, to the culture, to the community, to everybody. It just, certain games hit different. And you're right. I think Florida could have lost their first two games by a combined 352 points. And LSU would look at it and say, great, we got to beat them by 353 today. Like, I think LSU rolls in this game. I think LSU wins in this game big. And I think the Billy Napier the quiet yells become loud ones after LSU proves that they're in a completely different category. And that's a statement about LSU. It's a statement about Florida. It's a statement about focus. It's a statement about Brian Kelly. Like, I genuinely believe, not just because of our friendship, that we sit here right now going into week 3 of college football, and LSU is in the national championship conversation. I think that's a fair statement to make about that team. I think Florida is in the, oh my God, we're going to have our coach get fired conversation. You put those two in a rivalry game on the same field in a September football matchup where it's just going to be, gross, sweaty, obnoxious. They're just going to want to go out in the field and absolutely annihilate each other. Yeah, I think LSU, you're 1,000% right. I think this game is an absolute slaughter. I think LSU wins and wins easily. I think, Caroline Fenton, I think you're popping your feet up. I like to call certain games, this is new for this show, but I like to call certain games beer games. And what I mean by beer game, even as somebody that doesn't drink, is that at a certain point, you're no longer stressed. You just pop your feet up. You put them on the coffee table. You open a beer. You just start sipping it. You're like, things are good. I'm not worried about anything. LSU versus Florida is a beer game. You're going to be enjoying a beverage by the second quarter, knowing that LSU has this thing completely in hand and they are slaughtering the Gators.
Go Tigers.
Yeah. And also LSU has Southeastern Louisiana next week. Like, I don't think they're looking ahead to anything. Fitz, I don't like that you said that. That makes me nervous.
You're welcome.
Because, No. Have you ever seen that meme? And it's like a mother who's driving a car and she's looking behind at her child in the backseat saying, why can't you just be normal? And then the kid's like getting up out of his car seat and he's like, ah! That's what I have to say about this game. these two teams, whenever they face off, I say, why can't you just be normal? Why can't this game just turn out the way that everybody thinks it's going to turn out? You score your points, you do your job, you wipe your hands off, and you go home. No. This game can never, ever go according to plan. You remember the shoe game? Florida had their ticket to the college football playoff punched. They went to the SEC championship game that year. They were the second best team in the SEC behind Alabama. LSU had it was already on the path to firing Ed Orgeron just a few months later. LSU was miserable that year. LSU beat Florida because Florida's defender threw an LSU player's shoe. Like, that's what this kind of game is. Yeah. So as it was iconic. As much as I would love to, agree with you that this is a game that I just kick my feet up and enjoy and just to get to have fun, enjoy football like a normal person, this game is never like that. It never goes according to how you think it's going to be. Something weird is always going to happen. And I say that knocking on wood. I would love for my life as a football fan to just be easy, but it's not. It never can be. I think Florida's able to cover the 7.5-point spread because this game is weird. But I do think LSU wins this one. They should.
It's a shoe game. It's a shoe game. It is definitely a shoe game in the sense that in the third quarter, you'll be shopping for shoes online because you're so convinced that your team has won. That's how casual you're going to be. I'm telling you,
hope
you're
so.
celebrating.
From your mouth to God's ears, Fitzy.
If I only had that direct connect. All right, so let's look at another sneaky game this week and see if we can find this as part of our trap game scenarios. What about number 18 now, USF, taking on number 5, Miami? Remember, USF gets to number 18 by way of an upset win over Florida, and now they stay in state. They take on Miami. Miami is 17.5-point favorite. I have a hard time with the concept. If you'd have told me that this could be a trap game a week ago, maybe. But now, look, come on. The Miami coaching staff has shown the USF win over and over and over again. Like, they ain't sneaking up on anybody. If anything, Miami right now is charged. I don't think this can be a trap game. I absolutely believe that this is going to be a tough game.
Yeah, I love this story about USF. I love an underdog story. I love a group of 5 team coming in and upsetting a power in the same state in one of the most difficult places in college football to play, like they did last week when they went into the swamp and upset Florida. But now I think they're putting everybody on display. USF is a very good football team. They have a ton of talent defensively. Their head coach, Alex Golesh, was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee in 2022 when they had Hendon Hooker and Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt, when they had the number 1 offense in the country, that electric magic year at Tennessee. Alex Golesh has brought that same kind of offensive philosophy to USF. And I think that kind of, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, I promise, but it's kind of a little bit of a gimmicky offense that works at that level of football. And clearly it worked last week against an SEC defense. So I love this story of USF. And I still think that USF, with a loss to Miami, can be the group of 5 representative in the college football playoff. I wholeheartedly believe that. I just don't think that anyone is going to overlook USF after what they did to Florida. Now, Florida made some silly mistakes in that game. Spit on a player, like a 15-yard penalty right there in an incredibly critical moment in the game. So I think Florida made a ton of mistakes. Florida, didn't make any adjustments to adjust to what USF was showing them. Whereas I think Miami's coaching staff and Miami's talent, one, they're not going to look past this team. They've shown that they're not a team that can be looked past. And I just think that there's too much talent and too much experience on this Miami team, most notably at the quarterback position. You have Carson Beck, who played 2 years at Georgia and has experience in some of the biggest games in that college football has to offer, versus DJ Lagway last week at Florida, who's still kind of adjusting to a starting role. So I love the story of USF. I do think Miami rolls, and I think they roll big, but that doesn't mean that all of the magic at USF all of a sudden just gets derailed.
I think we're not sleeping on USF. We're sleeping on Miami at this point. Like, USF beat a bad Florida team. Okay. And they beat a bad Florida team needing, Spitgate and all of these other things to happen over the course of the game to get that win over a Florida team that I just don't think is any good. Now they're going to take on a Miami team that's incredibly good. And you're right. Like, I've had my questions about Carson Beck, but so far early in the season, looks like he's answered them. Like, Miami's getting what they paid for. And this is a Miami team that's played really, really well. I feel like, for whatever reason, we're still sort of sleeping on the Hurricanes as part of the national championship conversation. And for that reason, Miami still has the opportunity to come in and make a statement. Like, they're weirdly under the radar for a team that's currently ranked number 5. So in my mind, this is an opportunity for Miami to come out and say, hey, everybody's in love with USF. And you know that's the message they're preaching too. Everybody's talking about USF's meteoric rise. Well, let's go out and kick the snot out of them and then remind everybody that we're Miami. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. 17.5 is a beefy number between two ranked teams. But frankly, I think right now USF is being overvalued and Miami's being undervalued.
And then Miami turns around and hosts Florida. So another opportunity for an in-state statement kind of game. So maybe you could make this claim that it was a trap game had USF not beaten Florida. But now everyone, especially everyone in that Miami building, is on notice.
Well, we'll keep breaking down college football next. John Mateer put everybody on notice about his Heisman capabilities. Ben Fawkes will join the show. Tell us what Vegas thinks of where he stands right now in the Heisman race. Every year early in the season, somebody catches fire, and that's John Mateer right now, the Oklahoma quarterback who's flying up the boards. When we talk about Heisman odds right now, after 2 weeks, you see, according to BetMGM, he's now the co-favorite with Garrett Nussmeier. We'll break that down now with our buddy Ben Fawkes joining us. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily. We see this all the time. There's a tough schedule coming from Oklahoma. What do you make of the move up the board as a Heisman co-favorite at this point?
Yeah, look, we've already seen a ton of movement on the Heisman odds, right? It didn't seem too long ago that Arch Manning was the favorite, right? At plus 500, a big favorite heading into that week one. Obviously, Garrett Nussmeier played well opening week. They win that game against Clemson. All of a sudden, he's the favorite heading into this last week. And now he's dropped a little bit to plus 900. John Mateer flying up the odds boards. A couple weeks ago, he was 20, 25 to 1, 13 to 1 entering this week, now up to 9 to 1. Talk to BetMGM odds makers. This was both a combination of they took some bets at those numbers, 20, 15 to 1. So they wanted to move a little further potentially than maybe would be even warranted, let's say, based on the play that he's had so far on the field. But as the odds maker pointed out, few QBs really have had that great performance in prime time against a top 25 opponent in Michigan. He obviously looked good. That schedule is tough, as you alluded to, Fitz. I mean, they just have kind of ranked team after ranked team. They will get Kent State, so that's not bad. Temple this weekend, but they got Texas, at South Carolina, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, Alabama, like LSU. So he's going to earn it for sure. Probably an overreaction a bit in the odds based off of that. And he only has the 7th most bets and eighth most total dollars at BetMGM. So it's not like he has the most bets all of a sudden, but obviously a big move from last week to this week.
I think the most fickle betting market in college football is this one that we are seeing right here. You see national championship odds or conference championship odds. They usually stay around the same. There's the same couple of teams at the top. But in Heisman odds, like you just mentioned with John Mateer, flew up the board after one game. There can be so much movement there. So maybe less of at the top, more at the bottom. Where are some bettors seeing some value, maybe in the plus 2,000 plus range?
Yeah, I think this is one that stood out to me, and you're always looking right a little bit ahead, right? Because you want to potentially bet on a player, and for the most part in the Heisman market, a quarterback, right, who hasn't really had that breakout game yet. And I just go back to TCU quarterback Josh Hoover, right? The last time we saw him, TCU didn't play last week. He was trouncing UNC in Bill Belichick's debut. He was 200-1 before that game. He is down now to 66-1, obviously based on only that performance. But I was just curious. He looked a lot better. I don't know if you guys had seen him before. I was not familiar with his game. He looked great, and that's just a player I had my eyes on at 66-1 down the odds board. As we've seen a lot of jumps so far. I think that's another player where coming out of nowhere, obviously going to have to put up a lot of numbers to get to the top there, but someone maybe to add to the portfolio, throw a couple shekels on.
Yeah, it feels like the Heisman voting is so open this year. Let's get to some NFL thoughts. Tonight, we had the Green Bay hosting Washington. Packers now 3.5-point favorites. So explain the line movement for everybody on this one.
Yeah, a ton of line movement. So sportsbooks open look-ahead lines, basically. So pretty much the lines for every single game in the NFL season back in May, right after the schedule was released. This was Packers -1.5, right? And so for the most part, not that much has changed, except that they've played one game and the Packers have Micah Parsons, right? Those are kind of the two data points that we have. This reopened Packers -3 on Sunday, has bounced back and forth in between 3 and Packers 3.5. It's 3.5 at some sports books, 3 at others. The vast majority of the bets and money still on the Packers. I would say the sharps on the Commanders at plus 3.5, and pushing that up probably, if you like 3, you can get that with the Packers. If you like plus 3.5, you can get that with the Commanders. Public obviously liking what they saw from the Packers last week in a dominant win over the Lions, and really the Commanders didn't get as much of a chance to make a statement just because the Giants, well, they pretty much stink on offense from watching some of that game. Didn't need to watch the rest of it. So I think that's what we've seen from the line movement, assuming Micah Parsons plays a little more this week. But the Commanders just didn't get as much kind of to show off, but a lot of movement from what we saw preseason, and this being 1.5, obviously crossing that key number of 3. I think it'll bounce back in between 3 and 3.5 tonight.
Over under 47.5 on this game. That sounds kind of high to me, especially for one defense in Washington that I think is probably underrated based off of what we saw in 1 week, and another team that has Micah Parsons. So what is the betting markets kind of looking like? Is this going to be a high scoring back and forth kind of game, or is it going to be a battle of defenses here?
Yeah, really interesting total, right? Because you have Lambeau Field, which traditionally is difficult, right? Cold, frozen tundra. It's going to be in the 60s. It's September. It's going to be a nice night. So you kind of throw out the weather there. And we saw in week 1, unders were 12-4. So a lot of games going under. And obviously in the primetime game, the first game of the season, you had Eagles-Cowboys, looked like the game was going over, and then 3 points scored after halftime. It stayed under. So this is really about 50-50 in terms of bets. Bettors not really decided, slightly more at some sports books on the over. BetMGM, probably a big bet or two on the under. They have 75% of the action on the under. Haven't seen a whole lot of movement. Open 48.5. down to 48, 47.5 at some sports books. But I think this is one that the public is almost always going to bet on the over, with the exception last weekend where they loved the under in the Steelers-Jets game. We saw how that worked out. But it is a really interesting game. I tend to lean under myself just because of how we've seen these games kind of play out. And remember, the Packers offense, Jordan Love only threw for 188 yards. That game did stay under the total. So as dominant as the defense was, the offense played well. but it's not like they put up 40 points and blew the Lions out in that game either.
Stick there for a second, Ben, because I always preach first half unders in college football. Week 1 work, unders week 1 in the NFL work. Like, it just feels like offenses don't click. How long does that trend usually continue?
It's a great question. I would say sports books are pretty good at adjusting, right? So I don't think it'll last too long. I think it could potentially be a couple weeks. And also some of it is just seeing usually the defenses, like you said, come out a little faster than the offenses. And we're also always something early in the season is seeing what are the impacts of some of these new rules, right? And the big one is the kickoff return. And obviously kickoffs coming out, potentially more kickoffs, could be more returns. Does that mean people are starting further back? Does that mean the starting field position is closer? And so that's a big thing, kind of keep an eye on. If there are more touchbacks and it's coming out to the 35-yard line, potentially that should mean more scoring. We didn't see that in week 1. So I think that'll be something to keep track of, as well as kind of the starting field position and how offenses are performing against those defenses.
We have a Super Bowl rematch coming up on Sunday. The Eagles head to Arrowhead, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Eagles 1.5-point favorites here. This is one that I'm like, oh, that's a stay away game. Like, I'm not putting any of my hard-earned money on that game. But what are some of the bettors putting their hard-earned money on? What are some trends that you're seeing in this one?
Yeah, this is fly, Eagles, fly. Obviously, we saw these teams just play in the Super Bowl. Chiefs were a 1-point favorite, obviously on a neutral field. Now the Chiefs are a 1.5-point underdog at home, right? And so home field, we generally think of in the NFL, 1.5, maybe 2 points, depending on the venue. So that's a pretty big move based off of really only one game and obviously the off season for both these teams. And what we saw the last time that these two teams played, which was a Super Bowl that was not as close as the final score, 40-22, I believe. And the score wasn't that close, even in the final, with the Chiefs getting a couple late touchdowns. We're seeing 75% of the bets, 70% of the money on the Eagles at several sports books. And this is a rare situation for Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes, if he closes as an underdog, this will be only the third time in his career as a starting quarterback that he'd be an underdog at home in the regular season. 1-1 in those games, for those referencing that big trend of 2 games, large sample size. And look, listen, Mahomes as an underdog, especially including the playoffs, has been terrific. I think he's 12-2-1, I want to say, against the spread. So generally not someone you want to bet on as an underdog. But remember, Rashee Rice out, Xavier Worthy, we're not sure if he's playing. That offense did not look great, and that defense got shredded by the Chargers. The Eagles have more weapons than the Chargers do. So we're seeing the public on the Eagles right now. I think that line will probably be somewhere around 1, maybe pick them. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles close here as a favorite, and the public is certainly backing him, and you could understand why.
I mean, I'm shocked that this is the third time that Patrick Mahomes has been a home underdog. I didn't even think it would be that much. Are you surprised by this? Are you surprised that not only are the Eagles getting the edge here, but also that a majority of the money is coming in on the Eagles going on the road and taking on the Chiefs?
I'm not surprised, only because the public tends to bet on what they saw last, right? And even though the Eagles didn't look particularly impressive, they still won against the Cowboys. And the Chiefs, also in a standalone game the next night, looked just kind of, I don't want to say lost, but the offense had no explosion. They didn't have any explosive plays. Mahomes looked okay. The defense was okay. They just don't have that air of invincibility that previously everyone, right? The Chiefs were down. You bet the Chiefs point spread. You bet the Chiefs money line, because you don't give Patrick Mahomes the ball back. He's going to score. They're going to win that game. And I think they'd won some ridiculous amount of one-score games in a row, the Chargers game being the one that broke the streak. So I think people are still kind of the bloom is off the rose a bit with the Chiefs, and the Bills, the Ravens, some other teams are a little more public than the Chiefs, who also haven't been great against the spread. I think, as we discussed before, they've obviously won a lot of Super Bowls. That's a lot more important to their team. But in terms of Patrick Mahomes and their team against the spread, they haven't been that great or nearly as good as, let's say, a team like the Lions.
So, Ben, one of my favorite things that you've written was something we talked about for Yahoo recently, where you talked about quarterbacks and what impact each quarterback makes on the point spread. That becomes particularly relevant now, as we've already talked about in this show, the breaking news that Brock Purdy could miss 2 to 5 weeks. So now the 49ers find themselves in a line that went from favored by 7 to favored by 3, compounded with all the rest of their injuries. What impact does Brock Purdy's injury make to the way Vegas is going to see the 49ers coming up?
Yeah, I was going to joke that, first of all, this is kind of how I view the gym. First, I was a long shot, then I'm out, and then it might be 2 to 5 weeks before I go. So that's followed the same trajectory. But in terms of this game, yeah, this opened 49ers as a touchdown favorite against the Saints. If you recall, in week 1, the Cardinals were a 6.5-point favorite at the Saints. So open kind of around the same line. We obviously heard that Purdy was a little banged up. He had the toe injury, shoulder injury. The line moved off of that to about 49ers 4.5, obviously with a chance that he could play. Then once Kyle Shanahan said that he was a long shot, and obviously now on Thursday morning that he could miss multiple weeks, assuming Mac Jones is starting, this moved down to 3. And that was on Wednesday afternoon. So that's a big move, 4 points. The article you referenced, I asked 12 odds makers basically pretty much this, right? If a starting quarterback is out and you go to the backup, what is the point spread difference? They had it at 4.2. This is 4 points, right? So about that obviously depends on the key numbers you're going through, how good the team is, everything else. But it's roughly ended up there. Also important to note, the total has dropped from 43.5 down to 40.5. So obviously Mac Jones, you expect a little less scoring, not as potent an offense. And the Saints looked relatively competent as well. But this is a really fascinating game. Mac Jones, allegedly the quarterback maybe Kyle Shanahan had wanted back in 2021 over Trey Lance. Now he gets reunited with him, gets to see what they can do. But this has obviously been the biggest line move of the week. And the public's still on the Niners, as you would expect. Money line, 90% of the bets, right? They're only a 3-point favorite over the Saints. It's one of those, be careful games. Do you believe in Mac Jones? Do you believe in the Kyle Shanahan infrastructure and kind of that team that almost no matter who's at quarterback, like Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings, that they'll be fine? That's really what you're betting on, because the Saints looked a little better. The 49ers didn't look that great with Brock Purdy last week.
It is wild how much we're like, it's still the Saints. That just shows you how bad this season's going to be for them. Ben, we appreciate your time today and every Thursday. Thanks for hanging out with us and giving us the insights, my friend.
Anytime.
Thanks, Ben.
Fawkes giving us the latest, greatest. All right, from the latest, greatest there to Georgia. Are they actually the worst fan base on the planet? Somebody said it. We'll figure it out next. Yahoo Sports Daily. Georgia has the worst fan base on planet Earth. It's not even close. That from Austin Brown. Ironically, read the handle, Austin_Vols. So to recap, somebody that covers in some capacity a let's say high maintenance fan base now has told us that Georgia has the worst fan base on planet Earth. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily. I was saying that politely. Vols fans.
Let me just say, Fitzy, as somebody who is marrying a Tennessee graduate who comes from a Tennessee family, I am the daughter of 2 Tennessee alumni. My grandfather was a professor at Tennessee. I have a cousin at Tennessee. I have 3 aunts that went to Tennessee. I grew up in a Tennessee family. I can say this. That's the pot calling the kettle black. Saying that a Tennessee fan saying that Georgia fans are the worst on planet Earth. Love ya, but you're insufferable.
Yeah, I think so. Let me tell you a fun story. Okay, I'm gonna take Caroline Fenton down the storybook lane of Jason Fitz. I just moved to Nashville. All right, I moved to Nashville, and it was like '97. It's peak Peyton Manning, right around then. I moved to Nashville, and at the time there's an area, Hillsborough Village. You could drive up and down. There was a sports bar there, and people would actually they'd be in the streets trying to get into
Village
the sports
Tavern.
bar, just to watch games. So I had never lived anywhere at that time that really cared about college football. So I was like, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to go check this out. I love sports. I love the NFL. I'm going to go watch college football. So I walk into a bar wearing a red T-shirt because I was just wearing a red T-shirt. Like, I just the T-shirt I had on. I made it one step into the bar. I did not know that it was Tennessee taking on Arkansas that day. And I got a beer thrown in my face, and I got shoved out the door. And I was just like, what the hell just happened? I had no idea. Like, I didn't even know the context, and I'd worn the wrong color shirt. That was my introduction to SEC football. I have learned at this point that one fan base calling another fan base in college football in general, if you want to call another fan base terrible, that's the equivalent of somebody that's on my 600-pound life calling somebody else that's on my 600-pound life fat. Like, it doesn't work. Every single fan base is convinced the minute you say something against their team that you must have a bias, you must be an idiot, you must never have watched football, you must not understand football, that you must have some personal vendetta. Like, I love covering college football. Part of the reason I love covering college football is because, frankly, 90% of diehard college football fans suck. So the best thing about it is you just get everybody worked up. All I got to do is say one thing and it gets them worked up. And then I just stand there in the room with a total lack of emotion. I don't care who wins or loses every Saturday. So like this weekend, I cannot wait for Georgia, Tennessee. I also don't care who wins. And the great part is that when I reel off and take about it one way or the other, everybody's going to freak out. Oh, it's bias. It's bias. It's bias. Nope. I'm just sitting here watching y'all get all worked up, and I'm going to laugh at you the whole way because I don't really give a damn. College football fans are the worst, but that's what makes it the best sport to cover.
I would like everybody listening to set whatever else they're doing down and turn up the volume in your headphones. We do not hate your favorite team. We don't. I don't hate any team, to be honest with you. I think one of the hardest parts of doing this job is the fact that I want everyone to win. I want everyone to have a great time. I want everyone to experience the kind of unbridled joy that I experience when my favorite team wins. I do. I want that for everybody. Thank you. That is the best part of being a sports fan. And I wish that kind of joy on everybody. However, not everybody can win. However, our jobs are to pick winners and losers and who looks good and who looks bad. That does not mean that we hate you. That does not mean that we hate your favorite team. I promise you. We do not.
Okay.
I want good things for everybody. I promise you.
There's one small difference here between
Fitz
you and I,
hates
my
some
friend.
people.
No, here's the small difference between you and I. You and I share something in common. Noon Eastern on Saturdays, every single Saturday, I am on my couch in front of a TV. And I will be in front of that TV or at a sports bar. I will be in front of a TV watching games until roughly 1:30 in the morning. I do that out of love. We've done it for years because we've covered the sport. I do it out of love because I love college football. That being said, there's a little part of me that I love drama. So, like, you're rooting for everybody to win. I'm rooting for people to lose their minds. Like, I don't care if Alabama's good or bad, but I want to watch Vandy carry the uprights all the way down Lower Broadway because I know that that's going to get Alabama fans worked up, and then they're gonna want to talk about it, and I find that to be engaging. Like, I don't care.
I root for storylines.
I root for fan bases to all be a little bit out of their minds because it just makes our job more fun. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah. So, like, I don't root for anybody. I don't get any adrenaline when I watch it, but I kind of root against everybody. I'll admit that. I'm a troll.
Well, I think that comes from you, Fitz, not having a college football team. Like, I know that you love UNLV, that is your team, but it's kind of the same way with me with the NFL. I'm a Saints fan, but I'm also not as passionate of a Saints fan as I am an LSU fan, that I can watch the NFL and I can kick my feet up and I can say, let me just enjoy great games, great football, great storylines, like great things that I get to talk about. I'm lucky enough to get to talk about. Whereas in college football, I want my team to win. And it's not the same, rooting for chaos. I'll root for individuals. That's another great thing that we get to do in this job. We get to, talk to athletes. We get to talk to coaches. And then you fall in love with these athletes and these coaches. And you root for their success. And you root for their teams and their fan bases to fall in love with them just kind of the same way that you did. But yeah, it is fun. I mean, that's part of the fun of college football, is absolute chaos. That I think we all kind of find a sick, twisted pleasure in turning on Paul Feinbaum on the Monday after Alabama gets clobbered by Florida State because we want to hear Alabama fans melting down. There is something kind of fun to that.
Yeah, to me, it's fun to listen to Ohio State fans and Michigan State fans go at it in a bar. And then all I have to do is say one comment, knowing that I'm really just lighting up a fight. And then I just step back. That's it. That's the troll of me. So like a Tennessee fan calling Georgia fans the worst. Like, let's just be honest. Georgia fans, Bama fans, Florida fans, Tennessee fans, Ohio State fans, Texas fans, Michigan fans. Like, let's just go up and down the list. Like, they all have a section of the fan base that are just a little bit. They're a little sensitive.
Everybody's got a bad egg. Okay.
Yeah.
It happens.
I mean, and look, be judged by it. I am not a Raiders fan that wears face paint and shoulder pads that are spiked. I don't go up to people in a parking lot and throw beer on them. I'm not a mean individual when I watch football games. I congratulate the guy standing next to me at the end of the game if they win, because I'm like, hey, good game. We'll get you next time. Like, I'm not that guy. But I also understand so many Raiders fans have been for generations that I am judged as that guy. When people hear I'm a Raiders fan, they're like, oh, this is what you guys are like. Well, not me, but that's just part of you have to accept that we're all judged by the lowest common denominator. And I'm sorry, the lowest common denominator of most college football fan bases sucks. So what about this game? Georgia taking on Tennessee. I'm just being honest. Georgia's a 3.5-point favorite, and Josh Heupel, he needs to get a voodoo doll or something, because my guy has no idea how to beat Kirby Smart.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Heupel has yet to beat Kirby Smart. Tennessee has lost 8 straight to Georgia. And in every game that Josh Heupel has coached against Kirby Smart, Tennessee's lost by 14 plus. And the differences between Tennessee's regular season averages versus against Georgia are staggering. They're averaging about half as many points against Georgia than they are everybody else on their schedule. Significantly fewer yards against Georgia than they do everybody else on their schedule. There's just something about Kirby Smart and those Georgia teams and that defenses that just completely stifled Josh Heupel's offense. But I'm taking Tennessee. I'm taking Tennessee with a 3.5, and I'm going to take Tennessee to outright win. Neyland Stadium is a really, really difficult place to play. And I know that Georgia has beaten Tennessee in Neyland Stadium. I get that. I understand it's going to be loud. It is going to be raucous. And this is an environment that Gunnar Stockton has not been in before. I know that he came in the college football playoff. I get that. That's a crazy high stakes environment. But this is going to be loud, and this is going to be different than Georgia against Austin Peay. As long as Tennessee doesn't make any stupid mistakes, doesn't commit dumb penalties, they don't turn the ball over, because any margin for error, Georgia's going to take advantage of that. If they play clean football, if they're able to consistently run the ball, that's kind of a big fallacy about Josh Heupel offenses, that they just want to throw the ball around the yard all day. They want to run the football. And Joey Aguilar can make those throws that Nico Iamaleava didn't make last season. So if they can run the ball, they play clean football. Their defense looks as nasty against Georgia as it has the past couple of weeks under their defensive coordinator, Tim Banks. I think Tennessee wins the football game.
Everything you just said makes so much sense. And I love your point about Heupel loving to run the football, because that's real.
Yeah.
Like Heupel, like this is a let's run, and then we're going to be creative in our ability to pass. I just think Kirby, the defensive mind, has been one step ahead every step of the way. Tennessee is going to have to make some plays that Georgia knows are coming, but guys still have to make plays. This is where like elite athletes matter. And to me, so much, I go back to what Mike Vrabel said about the Patriots after the game, where he said 35% of it's coaching, 65% of it is a guy just makes a play. in this situation, I believe that there's a coaching edge to Kirby Smart. He has seemed to outcoach Josh Heupel strategically. So for me, I take Georgia because I don't know that I can trust some Tennessee player to come up and make that play. What I do know is that win or lose, Tennessee's season, the tone around it is going to change drastically. Georgia's won't, but Tennessee
100%.
will drastically based on the outcome of this game. I also know that tomorrow's Friday, and we've got so much coming at you to preview. We'll be back right here at 9 a.m. tomorrow to hang out with us on Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Have a great day. We will see you tomorrow.